If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Grace is where you realize you do not have to do anything. And in not having to do anything, you exercise the voice that tells you have to do it, and therefore you're able to change.
I like to catch you laughing when I hit record.
Just the end part, though.
I want the first thing our listeners hear is to hear your amazing Scottish laugh.
Thank you. You could, like my dad, you could find him anywhere in a mall if you got separated from the family. Just listen for his laugh.
Same here. Maybe that's why we're friends. We're both Scottish.
I think so.
I don't have a sweet beard like you, though.
Oh, yeah. This is my winter thing. I've never done it before.
It is winter, which is a great segue into welcome back, everybody.
Whoa, 2017.
To the Deconstructionist podcast. We are out of 2016. John and I have not died.
Nope.
We are here, and we are bringing you some freaking fresh squeezed juice.
Ooh. Who is it? Who do we got?
Dr.
You guys will understand why that's funny.
He gave us some serious, shit for that.
You know what? And in my mind, I went back and forth when I wrote up that list because I was like, well, he doesn't really go by doctor, though.
So, never.
A couple other guys that we had on the list, don't really go by doctor either. So I left it out.
He was pretty offended.
I know.
All right. So we have Dr. Peter Rollins.
Yes.
Peter freaking Rollins rejoins the Deconstructionist podcast yet again. And this was a surprise to John and I, too.
Yeah.
Apparently, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Truly.
And we all just needed to be together. And holy goodness.
Yeah.
We need to just get this intro over with because
you guys just need to hear this.
You just need to hear every freaking second of this conversation. Man, we hit it all. From New Year's resolutions to the link between Richard Rohr and Peter Rollins to making love.
Yeah.
To atheism, for giving up God for Lent. I mean, holy crap. If
it's just good.
We are blessed by
I'm not going to give his
Lord.
bio. At this point, this is the third time he's been on the show. So if you guys don't know, especially if you haven't heard Pete Rollins before, go back to our previous 2 episodes. We have, I think it was episode 8. I should know this. I just wrote this list. I think it's episode 8 that we first had him on. And then we had a special, I think it was August 16th, 2016. We had a special edition version, episode, whatever, of his Pints and Parables, an abridged version of his Pints and Parables that he does. So if you guys don't already know who he is, go back and listen to those 2, then listen to this one.
Your brilliant memory, John, is what I find most attractive about you.
Usually, that's the funny thing. Usually you remember everything and I remember nothing.
You nailed that.
Thank you.
You just went like a beautiful mind on us right there. Oh, enjoy this, everybody. We know we did. This is our New Year's kickoff. Enjoy some fresh squeezed Peter freaking Rollins. All right, well, Peter freaking Rollins, or should I say Dr. Peter Rollins? Should I say Dr. Peter Rollins?
Well, listen, I noticed on your website, we were talking about this, that everybody gets their official doctor title. I literally went down and there were like 20 people, doctor, doctor, doctor. And then it came to me and it was just Peter Rollins. And I'm like, do you not think my doctor is legitimate? Do you not respect it? Did I spend 7 years in university for no reason whatsoever? So yes, it's from now on, it's Dr. Rollins.
We were just trying to keep it real with post-structuralism, man.
Yeah, that's
just a structure.
It's a PhD in philosophy, so does it really even exist?
That's
the question, right?
Well, you know what? Here's the sad thing: is people think that people like me are not the real doctors, right? A medical doctor's a real doctor, but it's the other way around. Medical doctors aren't real doctors. That's an honorary title. But PhDs in humanities, that's a real doctor.
Absolutely.
So if someone on a plane says, we need a doctor, I can legitimately put my hand up. Whereas a medical doctor should keep their hand down.
Does anyone know how to do a pen trach to the throat?
Yeah.
Dr. Peter Rollins is in seat 22B.
Yeah.
If anyone has a problem with their ontology, I can help. On a plane, it's an emergency. I'm there to help.
They're having an existential crisis.
We are loving this, man. It is so good to have you back. What a great way to kick off the year. How have you been? How did your holiday seasons end up and everything like that?
Oh, it's been great. I've had a really lovely month. I went home for all of December and just relaxed by open fires. I loved the weather in Ireland. It was like these misty mornings. I was staying in this beautiful place called Crawfordsburn for a little bit. And it's just so picturesque. It's everything you imagine about Ireland. When you close your eyes and you think about that country and you imagine trees and grass and mountains, that's exactly it. In fact, C.S. Lewis loved that place. He went on his honeymoon to the Crawfordsburn Inn where I was spending some time. And the forest in Crawfordsburn is one of the inspirations for the landscape of Narnia. So when you're walking through it, it feels like you're walking through Narnia.
I love everything about that. As a bit of a C.S. Lewis fanboy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not many people know that he was born and bred in Belfast, but recently they've made this park and this square in his honor in Belfast, and it's got this incredible statue of Aslan, and also this the White Queen and all these other characters from the Chronicles. So it's very, very cool.
I love it, man. I hope Hollywood eventually gets it right with some of his stuff.
Gosh,
it's been pretty disappointing,
pretty brutal.
Who's that? Sorry.
I hope Hollywood eventually gets it right with some of his stuff.
Yeah.
I know. No, I'm actually tempted to do a little retreat about C.S. Lewis in Ireland, a critical engagement with his thinking, in the Crawfordsburn area, in that inn. So I'm kind of always been toying with it. If I can find 20 or 30 people who want to do that, we'll spend 4 days there. Okay, there's 2 already. Perfect.
Hands up. Hands up. Yeah. Oh man.
Absolutely.
Well, I thought it was pretty cool to have you back. This is kind of our first episode of the year, and even though it's going to be like February, I was thinking about you, and I was thinking of like this whole craze around New Year's and how everybody hits the gym and everybody's looking to like grab the newest self-improvement model, and how am I going to reinvent myself this year? And I was just thinking about how strange it is that just because the calendar flips over, we all have this like existential like panic. And I was like, I wonder what Pete thinks about some of this stuff. Like, what is your take on the whole like New Year's and New Year's resolutions and this kind of self-improvement? I'm sure radical theology and the philosophy of Dr. Peter Rollins has got one or two things to say about that.
Oh, let's see. Well, I mean, of course, I think it's wonderful that people want to improve their life and use this arbitrary number, which we all do. I mean, you don't have to brush your teeth in the morning and at night. There's no magical reason to do that, right? You just have to do it twice, but twice is useful. So you could do it at 3:00 in the afternoon and 4 in the morning. But we have this arbitrary thing. You brush your teeth in the morning, you brush your teeth at night. And I'm not against that, We as human beings have rituals. So the ritual of using the new year to think about, how can I transform my life is quite beautiful. But One of the concerns I have is just how ineffectual it generally is. Whenever we try to say, "Oh, I'm eating too much and I'm not fit enough," and we try to force ourselves to have a better diet and to do a bit of the gym, and within 2 weeks it's gone.
Yeah.
It's not dissimilar to what happens when some people use certain therapeutic processes where you try to, through positive thinking and force, stop yourself from smoking or something like that. You can have very good short-term results, but generally the result doesn't last for very long. So one of the interesting things for me is like, how can we instigate the kind of changes we want? So take the example of someone saying, right, it's a new year. I'm eating too much. I'm not exercising enough, right? So what I would say is, okay, first thing is don't do anything, right? If I wrote a diet book, the first chapter would be don't do a diet, right? So the first rule of dieting is do not diet, right? The first thing to do is to maybe sit down and ask yourself what eating that food symbolizes for you. Like if you find yourself eating a lot or eating unhealthy food, is that a way for you to cover over anxiety or depression or loneliness or something like that? And begin to ask if there's some meaning to that activity. So you don't try to fix it. You don't try to do anything with it. You just try to listen to it, right? Now, what might happen? Let's take a fictional example. Somebody feels they are eating unhealthily and they're not exercising. And by thinking about it, they realize that actually that's something they were taught when they were kids. When they were really young, their mother or their father or their school, they had this idea that they had to look a certain way and they had to be thin or whatever. And then they realize, oh, that voice isn't my voice. I've internalized an external voice. Right. So that's step one.
Wow.
They realize, oh, that's not me that wants to go on a diet and get fit. That's this internal voice of some other. But then the second step is they realize that actually they are protesting against that voice unconsciously. So the fact that they're eating a lot of unhealthy stuff and not looking after their bodies is actually a protest against that voice, right? They're actually protesting legitimately against something that's bad, which is this voice that's trying to force them to do something good. So then what you do in the third stage is you try to exorcise that voice, get rid of it. Now, that's the theological bit we might come back to in a minute. We try to get rid of that voice. Now, here's the really interesting bit. If you're able to get rid of that internal voice that's telling you to exercise more and be healthier and not eat bad stuff, you also get rid of the protest that fights against that voice, that stops you from eating healthily and stops you from exercising. So actually you find that you're much more able to eat better and to exercise.
Wow.
So you get rid of the very voice that's telling you to exercise and to eat well, and actually that helps you exercise and eat well. So that's what's called grace, by the way. Grace is where you realize you do not have to do anything. And in not having to do anything, you exercise the voice that tells you have to do it, and therefore you're able to change.
Oh my gosh.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. There you go. There you go. So that's kind of like the mechanism of grace in a sense. That's a way to understand why grace is effectual and why actually the demand to change is ineffectual.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
It reminds me a little bit of what I've heard you talk before about, listening to your symptoms, and you say something about how symptom sounds like a French word for holy man.
Oh, yes. That's right. Symptom in French, there's an old way of writing it, which is symptom saint homme, and saint homme is holy man. So the symptom and the saint homme, it sounds the same. And the idea is if you listen to your symptoms, they are holy men, they are prophets that actually speak to you. And if you listen to what your symptom is telling you, you're able to hopefully be transformed. So yeah, that's connected with what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, sounds really similar. I'm curious if you could elaborate just a little bit on what is it about grace that, incites the exorcism? Like, what is it about
Mhm.
the mechanism of grace that I find so exhilarating, and I always want to know more about it. It seems to be the only thing that can truly free anyone, but it seems like people usually almost punk out on grace. It's grace up into a point. People draw boundary lines around grace, and it's never quite as. It's really terrifying, I guess, is what I'm saying. If you actually let it be grace, so how does that mechanism become the exorcism?
Yeah. So, well, in order to understand that, I'd love to kind of actually draw some parallels between psychoanalysis and theology, if I can do that.
Yeah, do
So, one of the fundamental notions in psychoanalysis, as many people know, is the Oedipus complex, right? So everyone knows, Freud was really interested in this. The story is this guy wants to sleep with his mother. He doesn't know it's his mother, but he wants to sleep with his mother. His father is the barrier to that. He kills his father and then sleeps with his mother. And he thinks this will be a blessing, but it's a curse. Right? So that's the story. So someone will go like, why is that so central to a psychoanalytic theory? Well, technically, it's a symbolic story. The mother represents a return to some primordial wholeness, some oceanic oneness, because obviously the child, when they're separated from the mother, they feel this loss. So the return to the mother is a symbol of a return to that which will make you whole. The father is a symbol for that which gets in the way, that stops you from getting what you want. And then when Oedipus breaks through the prohibition and gets the thing that he thinks will make him whole, he thinks he's going to be blessed, but it's a curse. And that's why you've heard me say that get what you want, because then you'll realize how terrible it is, right? This is the curse of getting what you want. Well, I argue that actually the Jewish tradition starts with a type of Oedipal story. You've got Adam and Eve. They're walking around the garden. Then there's this prohibition. You shall not eat of this fruit. And behind the prohibition is this fruit. Now, there's an additional part to the story that I haven't talked about much, which is the serpent. The serpent says, if you eat that fruit, you will be like God. Now, what does that mean? Well, traditionally, God is one who lacks the lack. God is the one who is whole and complete. So when you say you will be like God, it's saying you will be whole and complete. So it's an Oedipal story. So Adam and Eve want this piece of fruit. They're told that if they eat the piece of fruit, then they will be blessed. Everything will be wonderful. They break through the prohibition, just like Oedipus. They get the piece of fruit. They think it will be a blessing, but it's a curse.
Wow.
Now, what's interesting to me is the serpent. In psychoanalysis, the voice that tells you that you have to do something and then you'll be whole and complete is called the superego. So in psychoanalysis, the superego is the voice that says you do X, Y, and Z, and then you will be right. In theology, it's called the serpent or the Satan, right? Satan is the internal voice that's telling you you can be like God, you can be whole and complete. Now, in psychoanalysis, the goal is to to weaken the force of the superego. This is called the cure. It's also called realization the big other doesn't exist. Right?
Yeah.
In theology, this is called exorcism or crushing the serpent's head, right? And it is getting rid of that. Now, in psychoanalysis, the technology for getting rid of that superego injunction, that voice, is the therapeutic method. In theology, the technology for exorcising the serpent is grace. Now, this is why I say that a lot of churches are a form of Satanism. I mean, it sounds kind of crazy at first, but any church where you hear the message, you have to do X, Y, and Z to be whole and complete. If only you read the Bible more, if only you pray more, if only you do this, this, and this, then you'll be whole. Then you will get rid of the lack. That is actually the serpentine voice in theology. That's called Satan in theology. In psychoanalysis, it's called the superego. In theology, it's called Satan. And the role of the church technically is not to obey the serpent. That's what we think. We think, if we obey the serpent, then everything will be good. No, the point is to crush its head. The point is to exorcise it, get rid of that internal voice that is saying, you do X, Y, and Z. So grace is the technology of exorcism. And that, I think, is the main role of the church. And one definition of grace is Paul Tillich's, which is the acceptance that you're accepted. So not just that you're accepted, but that you accept in your being that you are accepted, which means that you let all of that go. And as I mentioned in the previous example, the weird paradox is when you get rid of the serpent or the superego, what you're left with is the ability to really change. The point when I say you don't have to change, you're accepted as you are, is the moment that you get rid of the prohibition, the rebellion against the prohibition, you get rid of all of that, and then you can change.
She's got a name that I really wish you wouldn't say. I took her home.
Well, if you guys could see Pete right now, he's in the dark, and it literally looks like he's holding a flashlight under his chin, like telling a ghost story while he's doing this. So it just amplifies it on our end even better. I wish you guys could see this.
And my mouth is hanging wide.
And Adam's mouth is hanging wide open.
Man, I didn't know how
This
bad
is why I wanted to go onto your podcast, by the way. I wanted the encouragement. I missed the affirmation. So.
We are definitely good at that.
Well, I definitely was missing my Pete Rollins fix, obviously, too, because jeez, man.
So one of the things that I've noticed throughout your works, and I think this is again what you're saying tonight, which I think is great because we're finding it in a lot of other thinkers. And I know Adam's got a question kind of related to this a little bit later, but one of the things that we're noticing that a lot of just authors and speakers are really speaking to right now is kind of this I don't even know how to put it, like anti-doctrine kind of thing. That's a horrible way to put it. Maybe not anti-doctrine, but being more present in the moment and actually allowing real change to take place versus making sure we have all of our Bible verses memorized and all our doctrines straight.
Yeah.
Because we've realized, I think, but through hundreds of years that doesn't necessarily facilitate the kind of change that Jesus was talking about, right? And so
it can even be a protection mechanism against it. I mean, having all of the right thinking can often be a way of covering over our anxiety and not actually going into the work of grace that we've been talking about. Sorry, keep going.
Oh yeah, that's
it's a cheap way out in many cases. So I just think looking back at 2016, and Adam and I have been having a lot of discussions about how we want to kick off 2017 and doing a lot of kind of meditation on the year that was 2016. And for a lot of us, aside from the Cubs winning the World Series, there were a lot of other horrible things that happened. So, and just kind of looking back at the church, it seems like there are a lot of folks out there who kind of live that model of got to memorize my Bible verses. I got to have my doctrine straight. I have to make sure my church attendance is perfect, and I have to make sure I donate enough money to this charity or that orphanage. And what we're really missing is that heart change. And so how do we put that into practice going to 2017? How do we be better as a people?
It's good, man.
Yeah. I mean, this is actually one of the reasons why I believe in the church. I mean, people wonder why I believe in a place to go once a week on a Sunday. Why would we bother doing that? Now, I'm not necessarily talking about the church as it actually exists, but that idea of going once a week to somewhere. And it's partly because we human beings have resistance built into us all the way through. Like, we resist change. Freud actually noticed this. This is one of the first things he noticed, is that when it comes to looking at difficult things in our lives, we always resist. Constantly, we are trying to defend ourselves against our own knowledge, our own truth, our own anxieties, our own doubts. And that makes a lot of sense, because otherwise sometimes you wouldn't be able to function. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we want to change, we have to look at the things that we'd rather not look at.
Yeah.
And reading the right books, getting your doctrines correct or your philosophy right is not going to help on that. What you need to do is have a space in your life, a desert in the oasis of life, a quiet dry place away from the craziness of our everyday life, where we can begin to look at ourselves and our society and our culture without all of the noise, and where we have rituals and we have various practices that disturb us, destabilize us, kind of like projectiles which blow up in our lives and expose things. And I think that if we do not have a place in our life for that, we just probably won't do it. So the idea of once a week going to a community that does that's important. So that's why, in a sense, therapy is important. Is that you have in your life a place you go once, twice, or 3 times where you try to be honest about where you are and what you're about. And again, that's why for me the church is not a place where you learn doctrine, where you learn kind of the right answers or anything like that. It's this place where you go to be ruptured, reconfigured. And this, by the way, is a very conservative idea. I mean, I've got this from like reading some conservative theologians. So, I mean, Karl Barth is really brilliant in this. I mean, I disagree with Karl Barth on lots of things, but his early work, he says God is always a no to our yes. Basically, God is always an explosion in our kingdoms. And so to actually place yourself in a church is, in a sense, to place yourself under judgment, under critique, to put yourself in a place of perpetual destabilization. And so, in a sense, and he sees that as a productive and a powerful experience and thing to do. So in the same way, that for me, that's what I call transformance art. Transformance art tries to offend everybody, and so it doesn't offend anybody, right? So it's an equal opportunities offense community. It kind of challenges us all in a way that hopefully makes us more sensitive to each other. Because, by the way, just very quickly, for me, there's ultimately basically 2 rules of the church. Maybe we don't have time to get into this in depth.
No, do it.
But one of them is to sensitize us to the other. So one of the rules is it actually sensitizes us, because Emmanuel Levinas, he said, atheism is shutting ourselves off from the cry of the other, and theism is opening ourselves up to the cry of the other. Now, he doesn't go on and say, and it's also belief in God or anything like that. He literally says, whatever you believe about God, if you shut yourself off from the cry of the other, and by that he says, every face says, do not murder me, do not abuse me, do not objectify and kill me, do not treat me as something to manipulate. And he says, if you shut yourself off from that, it doesn't matter what you say you believe, you don't believe. But if you cultivate a sensitivity to that call and you respond to that call, you stand in line with the prophets, with Jesus, with the very radical core, the message of the Jewish tradition. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I believe that the church is the place that draws out fear and trembling, in that we have to take responsibility for how we act, not putting it onto somebody else, not thinking that there's some easy answer. We have to take responsibility for how we respond to that call. And if we do it wrong, we have to take responsibility for that. So that's why I believe in the church, and that's why I believe that what we have to have to really enter into this grace, to be part of a community that challenges us.
Man. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to think about there. It leads too easily into a question that I've been wanting to ask you, and then I really want to ask you a couple things about some projects that are really interesting that you've got going on right now, so I'll make sure we have time for that. But one of the things that when we got to spend some time together this summer, and we were up at Lakeside, and we were out on that porch, and it hit me then, and it's hitting me again now, and what you and John are talking about is we just had Father Richard Rohr on. That was our last interview.
Yep.
And contemplative tradition, and really just a breath of fresh air for a lot of us right now, turning to guys like him. And then also, one of the things we've noticed is a lot of people picking up Richard Rohr and reading him for the first time and really appreciating this fresh insight from ancient mysticism and the contemplative tradition, are also picking up your books and downloading your talks, and there's a link I see, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. And the link that I see is when I listen to guys like Richard Rohr, I see people kind of getting away from the sort of escape plan theology, get to heaven someday, sanctify yourself, pull yourself away from the world, out of the world through your doctrines and through your worship and through all of these things. And what I see the contemplative tradition saying is, no, it's the eternal now, to use a Tillichian phrase, the eternal now. It's here. It's contemplative is the present. And then I pick that up in you with guys like you and Barry Taylor and some of these radical guys that we've been listening to talking about the eminence rather than the transcendence, or the transcendence within the eminence. So there's this link there. And then with the contemplative tradition, silence and solitude and reflection being a bridge to what you're saying about those disturbances and that destabilization. There's a link here. I feel like it's a conspiracy. It is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, one of the links that I see as well, and I think there are connections, but one of the core connections is, interestingly, I think in the contemplative tradition there is a form of subtraction, right? There's a form of negative subtraction we do, where I'm saying, you think you want to get rid of the world, you want to get into the afterlife, right?
Right.
But there's a positive form of subtraction, and I've explored this in some of my writings. Now, the positive form of subtraction is this. Think of society as a machine that requires lithium batteries, that requires batteries to work. And so imagine like the Kardashians, right? There's these TV programs on TV, these reality TV shows. Now, what's really interesting is they're getting worse and worse, right? Now, you've got two types of viewers who watch them. Right? The first is the viewer who naively enjoys it. So they're watching it and they're going, "Oh, this is great," right? and then there's the viewer who watches it ironically, right? They laugh at it. They watch it. They go, "Oh my goodness, look how stupid this is." And one of the enjoyments they get is the fact that they know there are naive viewers watching it for real. So part of the ironic viewer is to make fun of the naive viewer. Like, technically, you could imagine a show where there is no naive viewer, where literally everybody's an ironic viewer, fantasizing that there exists some naive person who actually wants to be like the Kardashians. Right? There may not be this person. They may not exist, but still we all watch it believing that there is this person. This brings us into the philosopher Baudrillard. We can't go in there. But what's interesting to me is, how do these two types of viewer come up in ratings? Do they come up any different? Well, no. They both represent somebody watching the show, and that's what gives the show its energy. That's why advertisers give money to it, and that's why it keeps going. So whether you're an ironic viewer or a naive viewer, you're fully integrated into the system, feeding it with your libidinal energy. Right? Now, the contemplative tradition is a tradition that is aimed at withdrawing libidinal energy from the ideological system it's in, right? So the idea of contemplation is not to create protesters or ironic viewers who engage critically with the world and therefore continue to feed it. In a sense, the contemplative tradition is designed to unplug you from the constellation itself. I mean, obviously, you can think of the Matrix as a good analogy of this. In the Matrix, human beings are literally batteries plugged into a system, and the revolutionary act is to unplug yourself from the system. So I really like this about the contemplative practice, is it is designed to withdraw your libidinal energy from a problematic ideological system. And I think this is, in a sense, one of the most radical moves you can make, and something that I try and talk about in my own work. So there you go.
Gonna learn when all the bars are open, 'cause I can hardly breathe when I'm alone. And I'm gonna drink away memory, 'cause I know that I can't go home.
is all connected with this movie that I'm trying to get made at the moment.
Yeah,
which I think is where you want to go. I'm not sure.
Yes.
Talk about that.
It's curious because it's a short film called Making Love, and Adam and I were wondering if it's like the pyrotheology version of the Kama Sutra. Is this like a how-to guide? Like,
I would have very little to contribute to that, to be honest. No, that is not my forte. Yeah, it was actually the reason why it's called Making Love is because the phrase making love initially had nothing to do with having sex. It used to mean the art of creating love. Now, one of the ways that they would do this is with a chaperone. Somebody who is there, we think, to stop two people from having sex or doing anything bad. But actually, originally, the chaperone was thought of as having the opposite role. The chaperone was there to prevent you from doing anything so that you would begin to fantasize about what you could do if the chaperone wasn't there, right? So the very obstacle allowed you to fantasize about what you could do if the obstacle wasn't there. And this was one of the ways that you made love, that you created love, as in one of the ways that you fanned the flames of desire. So the movie, which I wrote years ago, and then I've kind of rewritten, is actually about this. And it comes back to Adam and Eve. It's an erotic theological thriller. And they're out there, I'm sure, right? It's about this idea of, well, I'll tell you the idea. It's two people who have had a brief but passionate affair that's cut short when the husband finds out and says to the guy, if you ever see my wife again, you'll die, right? But as fate would have it, they get to spend one last hour together in this hotel. And in this hour, the guy has to decide whether he actually stays the night and sleeps with her and then dies the next day, or whether he leaves and never sees her again. Now, this is actually a replay of the Oedipal complex. It's actually a replay of the Adam and Eve story. The idea that you really want something you can't have, and not being able to have it makes you want it even more. And so it plays out this very dilemma, and it tries to explore kind of the resolution of this. So it's a deeply existential, theological kind of film noir. And I have the feature-length version as well. I actually want to make the feature-length version, but I want to start with the short. And I found a brilliant director who is up for it. So we're going to be launching a Kickstarter to try and raise just a small amount of money to make this happen.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, we would love to help promote that.
We gotta help with this.
So do you know...
Music to my ears.
Do you know about when the Kickstarter would launch, or do you have a tentative date for that?
Tentative date is in the next few weeks.
Awesome!
Yeah, it's going to be close. It might be as late as March, but it's really in the next few weeks. We've got the video done. We've got the whole thing costed out. We actually have potentially a second short that we might make if we can raise enough money. So all of that's going to, and we will be relying on people like yourselves to kind of help get the word out. I'm excited because I want, anybody who's interested in pyrotheology, interested in the ideas that we've been exploring in this podcast. This is a way to get behind a project where we put it into cinematic form. This is not God. This is not God's Not Dead, right? This isn't Blue Like Jazz. This is a proper theological film, but actually it's a proper dark thriller, thoughtful. It's deep, and I think it's a really good way of exploring some of these ideas that aren't like in kind of philosophy books.
The question that everybody's going to be asking right now is: Are you going to get either Kirk Cameron or Nicolas Cage?
Nick Cage.
Nick Cage, that would be, that would.
Yeah, yes, please.
If he says yes, you know what?
I'm sorry.
Definitely.
I'm sorry. I had to. I couldn't help it.
Well, what's the Newsboys? What's the band that does God's Not Dead?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I could maybe get them to do the soundtrack.
Yeah.
You would sell like 1 billion tickets.
Yes.
To this thing. No, you wouldn't. No, let's just kickstart it and do it right.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, yeah, and anybody who helps out, there's lots of obviously rewards. And the first one is, you give it's like $15 and you get a link to the film as soon as it comes out, months before anybody else. And then, of course, you can pay to be a producer, to come on set, to stay in the hotel where it's set. I'm also going to be giving a lecture, an online private lecture about the themes of the film. So, if you contribute, you can get access to that. So there's lots of little kind of rewards, but hopefully the main reward is the warm feeling you get from being kind of part of this. Because I'm very excited. As I say, I wrote this years ago and then I put it away, and it's just recently I'm realizing we can actually make this happen.
Do you know what I love about this, Pete? Is this just my little 2 cents on it? It's almost like the seeds of what you did at Icon and this whole thing of transformative art that we're talking about on the podcast is you're taking it and you're putting it out in a bigger way.
Yeah.
You're almost taking it to the next level.
Yes. I mean, this is, by the way, one of the inspirations that I got from C.S. Lewis. I mean, I'll be honest, of course, C.S. Lewis, I wrestle with a lot. I would disagree with stuff. But C.S. Lewis grew up 5 minutes walk from my house. I went to the same church his family went to. My friend lived right next door to Little Lee, which was where he was born and raised, where the wardrobe is, that inspired Narnia. And, one of the things about C.S. Lewis is the way that he felt very natural moving from nonfiction to fiction to, to be able to enter into any number of debates about anything. And I think early on, it was that spirit that I admired about him. And so, for example, I've got also a comic book coming out this year of fairy tales that I've written on and it's called Enduring Love, because love is so difficult to endure. And it's about these little furry animals. Yeah, these little furry animals in a place called the Lonely Forest who are all trying to endure love. And again, for me, it's like, yes, of course, I'm going to express this in fairy tales and in parables and in a movie, as well as nonfiction, as well as philosophy talks, as well as pints and parables nights. It all makes sense to me.
Yeah, man, that's really good stuff, man.
Yeah. And if you fall on your face, I would encourage everybody who enjoys, who wants to get out there and write and think and speak, just do it. And it doesn't matter if you fall on your face or you embarrass yourself on something. I'm sure it's going to happen. I mean, it's happened before and it will happen again. But I just love being able to go into new areas and try new things. And the great thing is I've found great people to work with on this movie.
Dude, we can't wait. I mean, this is going to be for fans of your work and for fans of cinema and art that value it for forcing us into these what you call disturbances where we actually have to. It kind of reminds me of Black Mirror. Have you seen Black Mirror?
Oh yeah,
by the way?
yeah. I've watched quite a few. I've seen 6 or 7 of them. They're brilliant. I love them. It's like the Twilight Zone for the 21st century.
Oh my gosh, my wife is like, "Why do you like this?" I'm like, "Because I don't know what I think after I watch one of these."
Yeah, I just saw the one where everyone is rated. You walk around and you give people stars. Oh, so good, so good.
I love it.
It's funny how they tap into current times. Just spot on.
Spot on.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that you could completely, entirely envision happening in the very near future, like Yelp for human beings.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But that's one of the powers of sci-fi. I mean, great sci-fi can kind of write about the future that actually helps expose the present. And again, that was C.S. Lewis. Again, he wrote sci-fi, and it was partly those reasons.
Yeah. So good. Still some of my favorite stuff he's done between the Space Trilogy and the Great Divorce, which I think the Great Divorce is basically sci-fi in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, so good, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the big thing we definitely want to mention before we go our separate ways tonight is one of the things that I think has really caught on over the last couple years that you've done it. A lot of people really got into this, especially after we talked to you last year. Was your Atheism for Lent series. assuming you're going to be doing that again this year, and any changes that you've made to the curriculum?
Yeah, and I've got to thank you guys. After I did your podcast, the whole thing leaped. I mean, lots of people signed up as a result of listening to you guys and me talking. So thank you for that. I mean, I was so excited because I've been doing Atheism for Lent for years, and mostly it's very, very small. And many of your listeners will know the idea where for 40 days. We go, what will we give up? And that chocolate, marzipan, exercise? No, we're going to give up God, right? And actually what we do is we read all the great critics of religion and Christianity and God, not to judge them, but to let them judge us as a way of approaching the cry of Christ, my God, why have you forsaken me? And actually the idea is that this journey into what the mystics call the cloud of unknowing, the dark night of the soul, it is actually a place of great nourishment and great maturity. So I take people on that journey. Now, this year is every year has a different angle. And this year's angle is I want to look at the love affair between theism and atheism. Because people think these are two opposites and they don't like each other. But the secret is they actually love each other. That if you look at the history of these, it's the most passionate love affair you will ever see. They fight, they argue, they intertwine. It's like a movie. It's incredible. Bonnie and Clyde have nothing on this love affair between theism and atheism. And I want to draw that out. I want to show how they dance together. How some of the greatest mystics embraced atheism, how some of the great existential theologians embraced atheism, how some of the great atheists have the greatest critiques of Christianity that are matched only by the prophets, right? How people like Kierkegaard, Simone Weil, and others dance between saying that God is something we can talk about and saying then, but actually every time we speak of God, we say less than God. So we have to be atheistic about our theism. We have to disbelieve all of our beliefs. And so this really beautiful intertwining is so valuable and disconcerting, and I think a maturing process. And for people who sign up to my course, they will get a reflection for every day of Lent. And once a week, they'll get access to a lecture that I give on the material. So there'll be like 8 hours of talks for them to listen to in their commute, listen to while they're at the gym, or use as a sleeping tablet if
Oh man,
Pete, you've been doing this Atheism for Lent? How long now? Is like a thing?
Yeah, on and off. I've actually been doing it for probably close to 20 years. Now that's on and off.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it was inspired by a book by Merrill Westphal called "Suspicion and Faith." Atheism for Lent was the subtitle of that book. And as I've developed it, I've really taken it. Some were very exciting for me. At first we just read about some criticisms of religion and read about some of the thinkers who have critiques, and now we engage directly with them. At first it was only readings. Now I've got movies, music, art, got comic books, as well as great philosophy and great theology. So it's a real mix of not just head stuff, but also heart stuff. And I will be looking at where religious critique comes from. The sense of injustice in the world, sometimes the sense of anxiety, meaninglessness. We'll also look at the critiques from people outside the church, people like Marx, Nietzsche, and Freud, who have argued that a lot of religion hides desire for power, hatred for others, desire for protecting ourselves from anxiety. And also we're going to look at some of the critiques of religion from within the church. People like Kierkegaard, people like Meister Eckhart, Simone Weil, who critique Christianity and religion as viciously as people outside the church, but interestingly in the name of the church. So all of that we will look at. And I think at the end of this, if people take it seriously and do most of the readings, most of the reflections, I do believe that they will come out of Atheism for Lent being challenged, and being shocked, and also being renewed. And one final thing, and this, by the way, we had like 1,000 people doing it. I think it was 1,000 people last year, and we had churches doing it. In today's world, people say, "Oh, religious people and people in the church, they aren't open to listening to other people. They're not open to listening to other views." And the wonderful thing is, actually, I find that there are so many people who are actually dying to read and reflect on people who are critical of their position. It's
Absolutely.
so exciting to see it. But this year is actually going to be useful for atheists and theists and agnostics, because every one of those three will hopefully be challenged that, oh, theism and atheism are closer than we might imagine. So the atheists who do it will find some theologians that they might go, oh, I like that. That was fun. And the theists will find some atheist thinkers and they'll go, whoa, that was great. I've got to read some more of that stuff. And so I think this year will be of real interest to people wherever they fall in that spectrum, as well as people who maybe, don't ask that question.
That's beautiful, man. I was thinking of I had a thought. I don't even know if it's a good one or not. It's just something that I've been kicking around. I was reading some of Karen Armstrong's works this year.
Yeah. She's great.
Oh man, she's great. And her book, one of her more recent books, The Case for God, just kind of gives this huge overview of religion from the earliest time, like 10,000 BCE, all the way up until the present. Drawing on Jack Caputo and some of the things that are going on with even, I think, radical theology. And the point she kind of makes in a roundabout way, which I thought was so interesting, and I'd love to get your thoughts on, is she kind of puts atheists in this timeline almost like they rose up, almost like prophets when religion, specifically in the West, had just really imbibed this Enlightenment, over-rationalistic, overly certain view of spirituality and the divine. And you see this resurgence of atheisms almost rising up like prophets, is kind of what she said, kind of calling us back to the unknowing that we lost.
Absolutely. No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I still to this day, some of the thinkers who have influenced me most are the masters of suspicion. And the masters of suspicion is the name that is given basically to Marx, Nietzsche, Freud, maybe Feuerbach and Darwin to some extent as well. But in the 19th century, these thinkers came up and they attacked things that needed to be attacked. They attacked how religion was being used to oppress the poor. They attacked how religion was being used to justify systems of destruction, systems that silenced people. And in fact, Nietzsche himself said, in 100 years, they will call me a saint. Right. And Nietzsche, by the way, was such a religious individual when in his youth. He would write all these poems to God, and he was someone who felt this divine force more than anything you could imagine. So a friend of mine actually wrote a book called Pious Nietzsche, and he's a Christian theologian, and it's wonderful reading of Nietzsche as a saint. And even like a conservative philosopher like Merrill Westphal, he reads Freud, Marx and Nietzsche in the way that you're describing Karen Armstrong reading them. That's what I want to draw out in this, is that weirdly, paradoxically, the supposed enemies of faith might be the most faithful advocates and voices for faith.
Wow. That's so good. What have you heard people that take this course kind of say? I know you interact with your participants quite a bit. What are some of the feedback you get from this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really positive, actually. It's been this is why I keep doing it. For some people, weirdly, it's a place that helps them recover their faith. I've had people. There was a guy who was a missionary in Kazakhstan and Tajikistan, and he came back to Belfast. He was going to pack all of this faith stuff in. He did atheism for Lent, and he came out of it saying, "I'm able to actually express my faith in a healthier way now." Now, the reason is because he had all those questions within him, but they were repressed.
That's right.
Atheism for Lent allowed him to bring them all out, celebrated all of that questioning, and in that he was able to let it all go. Whereas before it was all so in there that he was going to explode, like he was going to blow up. So a lot of people, it's a way of actually allowing them to express questions they've had all their life. For some people, it's a way of kind of getting beyond some forms of fundamentalism that has been in them. It's a way of letting that go. Because interestingly, fundamentalism is not certainty. Fundamentalism is profound doubt. But it's profound doubt that's repressed. So think about it like this: if you grow up in some place where you just think you're right because everybody thinks the same thing, right? That's not fundamentalism yet, right? That's just what's called false consciousness, right? That's fine. But as soon as you meet someone who disagrees with you, right, or you start to ask questions, right, or you read a book that challenges you, at that point you've got two choices, basically. You can either go, oh, wow, that's interesting. I never thought about that. Maybe I should rethink my position, right? Or you go, oh my goodness, I'm not looking at that. I'm going to throw that book away. I'm going to get rid of that friend. And then you push it down. That's where I think fundamentalism, the way we describe it today, that's where it starts. So whenever you see somebody reading every book by Josh McDowell and they know evidence that demands a verdict inside out, that's often not evidence that they're certain. That's evidence that they're full of doubt, but they're repressing it. So they're trying to read books that help them repress the doubt even more. So Atheism for Lent is taking the lid off that pot and allowing people to actually face the doubts that they already have, face the questions they already have, and see where that goes. And I will not promise anyone where that will go. I cannot tell you where that will go. All I can say is I have taken that journey as well. I will take that journey with you. And I think that if you take it seriously, but I can't promise, I think that you'll end up in a better place. And that's all I can promise, right? But I think that is enough, hopefully, for people to go, yeah, I'll take that journey. I'm going to see where it goes.
You can go ahead and drop your mic now.
That's right. Watch the light slowly drop out of you.
I am in pitch darkness. I don't know why. It's not that.
You are.
Yeah.
You are. There's that little light on the side of your mic. That's the only thing we can see is like a little orb floating.
And we're just following it with our eyes, like we're like little
mesmerized by what you're saying.
It's like a rave or something.
Yeah. Without the bad music, really.
Yeah.
Sorry, rave fan music people. So for those who are already all about what you just said and they want to get involved in Atheism for Lent, where do they go to join up with this?
Yeah, all they have to do is go to my website or my Facebook page or my Twitter. The information's all there, and you'll be brought to a page. It's only $30 for the whole thing, but also if someone's broke, of course, money will not be an issue. If people can't afford it, just email me. But on the reverse side of it, if you're a millionaire and you believe in this, then feel free to give more. I'm very happy with that as well. But I never want money to be an issue. It's very important for me that there's never any secret knowledge that people have to pay for. Right? It's not like, oh yeah, I do the free stuff with the deconstructionists and on Facebook Live. But if you want to know the real stuff, you got to pay money. If you pay the money, then you'll know the secret. This Gnosticism. Go like, no, nothing I do will be like you have to pay for to get the secret knowledge. Of course, there's things to pay for, like if you want to come and see a live event, you want to come to my festival in April, you want to do that. But of course, anything that I'm doing, if money's a problem, you just let me know. But there you go. Hopefully it's not expensive, and hopefully it's worth every penny.
Come on, pyrotheology millionaires, show up.
Yes.
Well, we will definitely have all those links in our show notes and on our social media. And we can't wait to get behind this Kickstarter. I think this is going to be just a really cool, unique film that you're putting together. So we're really happy to throw our weight behind it for whatever that's worth.
Whatever we can do, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Listen, man, I'm so appreciate your support. Maybe I can get you out to the film set whenever we're shooting it. Get you to see it. Come, because it'll hopefully be shot in Belfast. So maybe fly you out or whatever. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we just plan that C.S. Lewis retreat at the same time?
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Done.
Well, listen, guys,
Done
I
and
really
done.
I appreciate all your support. I appreciate the support of your listeners. I always love being on the show. So thank you so much for this.
The door is
Uh,
always open, my
we-
friend.
we love you, buddy.
you
Thanks.
kickstarted our journeys in a lot of ways, so we love
Yeah.
getting to talk to you about this stuff.
Yep.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Cool. Well, for now, Pete Rollins, Doctor Pete Rollins.
The real doctor.
You just keep working hard, man, and we're gonna just keep following you into these projects. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
All right, we'll take care. See
Brilliant.
ya.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Do you need some ibuprofen?
Oh my goodness.
I know
mean,
I do.
We were just talking about this. He's like one of those few guys that we've had on the show where literally you could just, here's a topic. I mean, we could have just done all lightning round and just let him go.
None of that was prepared.
No. These are the fewest questions we have ever brought into an interview.
You were a little panicked when you got here.
I was.
Because I was too.
Yeah.
I just kind of trusted him because he just wanted to do this, and I had faith. I had so much faith. And oh my gosh, we didn't need to prepare anything.
Yeah.
Jeez. I was like, I wonder what he would say if I asked this.
Adam knows how to make me panic because I'm like Mr. Planner. I've got calendars 6 months ahead with like color coded, and like I love to have like all my stuff like typed out.
We're the
whatever.
odd couple, man.
It's true.
It's why hey, I'm rubbing off on you. You're rubbing off on me.
I know.
It's
I know.
a beautiful thing.
Well, it did help that the first thing you did was hand me a glass of scotch when I came over.
Here,
So-
it looks like you need this.
Yeah, it's been a
don't-
long day.
We don't have a plan, so here's some whiskey.
And a pen. There you go.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
Oh, that was so fun.
Yeah, dude, that was excellent. Just this whole New Year's thing is something that I think about every single year, and the big thing that stuck out for me was we all rush to fix ourselves
Mm.
all the time, not just New Year's. I think New Year's is just this distillation of this impulse we all have to fix ourselves, be perfect, blah 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 blah. And the takeaway for me, the grace thing was amazing, and I could stew on that forever. But just like, are you even listening to why you do these things?
Right.
Just simply ask yourself a question. If it's, I do this too much, or I want to quit this, or I want to start that, like, just get to the why underneath that and just sit with that why for a little while. Give yourself some room to breathe with that why.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I'm realizing that I love the most about Pete is that, and it's the thing that I love the most about like all of these guys who kind of fly under the banner of pyrotheology, like your Barry Taylors, even Richard Rohr's outside of that camp. Rob Bell. Rob Bell wrote a whole book about it this year. Is this idea of kind of taking the time to sit in the here and now. Just marinate in the here and now, not worry about what happened in the past, not worry about the future, but worry about the here and now and enjoy it for what it is. And the way that Pete ties it together with the message of Jesus and bringing the kingdom here,
Right.
and taking care of the poor and the other. And, he brings up the other repeatedly
All the time.
And it's just funny because I look around us, as a church, and I use church as a generic term, but we do a great job of showing up on Sunday, and we do a great job of making sure that we put our donation in to help the orphanage and wherever,
Yes.
But how many of us actually know, the names of even one homeless person in your neighborhood?
Or how about your neighbors?
Yeah.
Do you even know your neighbors' names? I mean, I'm guilty in that regard sometimes.
Me too.
Yeah, it's like,
I know I don't do it, so I know if I don't do it, I know, my friends don't do it, and it's just this kind of, lazy faith,
well, I think that it's a selfish faith.
For sure.
Yeah, lazy and selfish because,
Mhm.
Lazy is kind of selfishness. And
Sure.
I think a lot of the things that we do that we classify as spirituality or Christianity is really just pleasuring ourselves, just pleasing ourselves. I don't want to be crass, but that's essentially what it is. It's like, I feel better now.
Yeah.
I did this and now I feel good. And it's just
Right.
like, got the monkey off my back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good to go. Yay. I managed God, or I managed holiness, or I managed sin, or I managed my guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And really all it is just ego management. The whole thing is just ego management.
Yeah.
And pyrotheology just cuts right to the quick of that. And everybody's gripe is, oh, you know, they've got no doctrinal beliefs and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, I'm sorry, that's just not a valid critique in my opinion, because what they're trying to do is ask you, the person saying they don't have any doctrinal critiques, to quit playing a shell game with your doctrinal critiques, get off the merry-go-round, and actually start asking yourself if it's changing anything about the world or your life,
Your heart.
Are you actually taking grace seriously? Quit talking about what it means in propositional phrases and actually ask yourself if it's doing any transformative, disturbing work in your life. And I can't come on, man. Like, that's what this is all supposed to be about. So it's almost like calling BS on the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. I mean, that's what the minor prophets did.
Sure. You know, and ultimately, if God comes down, he's going to be like, thanks a lot for the donation so we could pave the parking lot for the church, but I don't really care about that.
Right, exactly.
Like, you've walked past this homeless person 55 times and haven't even said a word to them.
Yeah.
You know, like, take care of my sick, my poor, you know, let's start there.
Yeah, exactly.
So for 2017, I think that's personally my goal. And
Good goal, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to give up being a selfish prick for 2017 for Lent. How about that?
I don't think I could like you anymore.
Oh, I love you, Adam.
Oh, man.
Missed you, buddy.
Missed you too, man. So 2017, kicking it off with some fresh squeezed pyrotheology, atheism for Lent. Guys, let's get behind Pete on this.
Yeah.
Let's, listeners, deconstructionists out there, art changes the world. Art usually lives on much longer than propositional ideas. It gets into the fabric. It gets into the consciousness of culture. It haunts us. It changes us. Pete's really involved in making some great art. Let's get behind him on this. And hey, if you have a night where you like to get drinks with your buddies or go out for drinks or coffee with your friends, why not make atheism for Lent something that you center that around? And instead of talking about NFL or the Kardashians, not that anybody that's listening to this podcast probably does that, talk about pulling your beliefs apart and finding the naked self that sits behind those beliefs and encountering all your insecurities and vulnerabilities in a group of people that supports you. I mean, I can think of no healthier thing to do with our time than to engage in some of these things. And Pete creates all these warm, welcome spaces with no judgment that I think are brilliant. So let's get behind him. Go to peterrollins.net or drpeterrollins.com or whatever the heck it is. Check our show notes.
Yeah, look at our show notes.
And
also, I have no idea who the band's going to be because, to be quite honest, I haven't looked at that yet. This is kind of impromptu. So
this is the curveball that I threw you today.
So check our show notes. And also, obviously, don't be sad because there's not going to be another episode next week. This is kind of just to you know,
easing you back
quench
in.
your thirst.
Yeah, we're just easing you back in.
We will let you know officially when our 2017 official kickoff will be.
Officially.
As soon as we know.
We will officially let you know officially when it'll officially be officially.
Yes. So check our social media.
We love you guys. It's so good to be with you again in 2017. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Grace and peace, everybody. Keep deconstructing. We are your hosts. I am Adam Narlock.
And I'm John Williamson.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer? Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. And now, during our Black Friday sale, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Plus free home delivery when you add a base. And Cyber Monday. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.